Welcome back to Child of Light. So now we get to explore the water dungeon.
You know, it's weird seeing you and Tio all of a sudden get negative about this game as soon as we're in this phase.
Well, I reckon, remember, Jova, despite me usually enjoying what a lot of people can consider relatively bad games, I have to recognize when a game flaws actually start to surface in, like in this case.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
I mostly enjoyed the game despite its simplicity, but I cannot defend this being for saving my life.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cases where okay, I'm guessing this is supposed to be the end game phase of the game.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where the end game phase of the game kind of ruins the journey in retrospect for me because, okay, look, I spent most of us working up to this point, expecting, okay, the game's starting off vaguely, but we're gonna get into the actual meat of it where it does explain. Here, it just peters out. It's honestly like it's a Ground Zeroes-esque demo. I mean, thankfully,
I wouldn't say as same as Ground Zero's demo, but it's definitely like they're still short, especially for being a JRPG.
That was a different situation, though. Ground Zeroes was.
Hold on. When I say Ground Zeroes demo, I'm not talking about all the circumstances. I'm talking about how Ground Zeroes was definitely a prologue to Phantom Pain. It's like, well, this is like, a smaller game that's a prologue to it. That's again
yes
essentially
and no,
a demo.
Jova. Honestly, again, I feel like the part until the temple would have been considered kind of like a prologue. So if we just stretched not stretched, but kept the length of what region was supposed to be for the second part of the game, it could have been of a decent duration. Not spectacular, not super okay, but it's still if this second half was more fleshed out and had the content that supposedly went missing, honestly, it would have been still fine enough, especially because, in case you don't remember, at this point in time, Ubisoft only published JRPGs, and it was still back like in the PS1 era, sort of. The two major attempts at JRPGs were Grandia, which then Ubisoft even lost the rights to the IP and went first to Square Enix and then back on its developer itself. Don't ask. And the second one being Astonish a Story, which is a game I really hate, and I want to talk the less about it.
So we're obviously going to end up commentating on it eventually.
Well, at least it's short. This was technically the first attempt that Ubisoft tried to develop internally a JRPG of their own. Like, it was a complete first one.
I'm going to be quite honest when it comes to...
I want to be a bit lenient on the fact that it didn't turn out as well. But I'm also not pulling away from saying that, again, this was 2014 Ubisoft, which couldn't care less about products that were not aimed to the edgy teenager, 18 years old crowd.
Not only that, but I'm going to be quite honest, when it comes to, overall plot planning, I don't really get into the whole it's their first time excuse, like, oh, wait.
I agree.
Isn't this swell, Tristus? We're in the same troop.
True, it is also the fact that, as I mentioned, the plot should have been more simple. True.
I'll get more into that after this dialogue bit.
In battle, I suppose our act will be sharpened.
See, I'd like more character interactions like this.
The problem is that they're random,
you
Joe,
always
like I've
make me... Well, it's not just that, Pedro, but it's the fact that they're sparse. Like,
they're sparse because of the randomness. The thing is, we should have gotten one of these every single time a battle ends, basically.
Not even just that, but I mean, there's literally just one interaction with each character. And okay, look. Maybe this is like a huge game like Project Cross Zone. I could get only having one unique interaction. But I'm sorry, for a game this short, there should have been more interactions, especially...
Oh god, these side quests.
What the heck?
Go ahead, Pedro, might as well.
Igniculus, help me.
There are more like Igniculus. How do you know my name?
Well, you really thought it was one of a kind?
Okay.
The main reason this one is because this one expands upon Igniculus.
Well, not just that. It's just like, again, Igniculus has been like our partner from the very get-go, yet only now they're actually pushing the notion that there's more of him.
Well, Jova, if anything, this tells me again that there was something, where it's implied that was supposed something big, but they couldn't implement it, and they just used this as a side quest at the very end.
Well, then I'm sorry, that's just downright clumsy. What was stopping them from putting this earlier in the game?
Oh, to return to that everlasting morn.
Okay. We can talk more about that later after the dialogue.
It is glorious, brighter than bright.
So what do we miss here?
Basically, he needs help.
Yeah.
Crackling with dancing light.
Uh-huh. And more fireflies like we live there. See, even Igniculus seems surprised about this.
Thousands, all our brothers and sisters spare.
So
Basically,
are they
apparently the
implying
fireflies,
that...
the fireflies come from a different world, and he needs us to find all the other fireflies so that we can magically return back to our world, to the firefly world.
Is
An
this a
ogre
side
stolen
quest
to
or a
the
main
deep.
quest?
Side quest. Side quest.
Huh.
From the queen of the night I escape, but to make
Essentially,
the jump home I am too weak.
Essentially, since the spirits were essentially pledged their allegiance to the Queen of Light, obviously Umbra didn't want any of that.
So let me get this straight. Igniculus' species actually come from a different world than this one.
Well,
What?
it's a good job. It's the same with Nino Kun in a sense. What we visit are two parallel worlds, but it's implied there are so many others.
Yeah, but again, this just kind of comes out of nowhere.
They have risen.
Mm.
Go ahead, Shiri.
Where?
Remember, you're supposed to use your normal voice now. Because
Ah,
she's
I'm
gone for
not the
puberty
child.
now.
I am so tired.
Puberty hit her overnight.
Yeah. Just when
Literally.
that happens. They cannot hear me. The elementals are scattered.
Also, you're elemental, so are there fire elementals?
Yes, there are various different kind of elements.
Sorry,
of
Jova,
fireflies.
none of them is voiced by Mark Hamill.
Well, I get that, but it's weird. I don't recall Igniculus ever being called an elemental.
These lost lights come to me. I sense, but Igniculus is light. There's a fire one. There's a you get
No.
where this is going, right?
I get that. I'm just saying, I don't recall Igniculus ever being, called an elemental in the game story before this point.
Too bad, Jova. We gotta rush the fuck out of the game, so we'll go.
Mostly because the character, well, it's a combination of the fact that everyone talks in rhyme, so we need to use Aulic terms, but there's also the fact that the only characters who met in first were Aurora and the Queen of Light, and both of them just called it a spirit, relatively generic speaking.
I
So
guess
we just probably wrong.
I guess I
Sorry.
wouldn't be
Yes,
making
we'll
so
bring
much.
them back certainly.
I guess I wouldn't be making so much a stink about this if the characters really just act more concerned about this. Like here, they're acting a bit nonchalant about the fact that, oh, there's another race possibly being enslaved, needs help getting back home, but okay, we'll do it. Like, even Igniculus doesn't even really seem that concerned. Like, and not only that, he was just a second acting like he didn't know there were others like him, so, again.
And guess what? One of them is right here.
Okay.
Yeah. However, don't get
Hey,
used
an
to that
ancient
because
elemental summoned me. is he nearby?
In
The shallows of the cynical. Actually,
sorry,
that's
was that?
Aurora. That's the... It was Aurora.
It's hard to tell. 5 more, we must say.
Bye.
yeah, again,
Sides.
don't get used to it because the others are tied to those emblems you have seen throughout all the world.
Yeah. Hey, an ancient elemental summoned me. Is he nearby? The shallows of the Sinbal Sea. Fly. I go join the elemental. Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, thanks.
4 more left to spy. Seriously, Igniculus, you don't want to reflect on this more? More people of your species?
Well, I
If I
guess
feel like
Jova took the Ratchet and Clank approach and just say, whatever.
Well, even okay. Even the game that the movie's based off of does more. The movie, admittedly, was a tie-in movie that it was trying
No,
to.
Jova, I mean, in the future sub-series of the Ratchet and Clank, an important question is raised about Ratchet species because throughout the original trilogy, it was kind of always implied, but Ratchet eventually comes to the realization that he's the only kind of Lombax, his own species. So only by the start of the future trilogy, quadrilogy, he starts to actually question himself about what should we do, what happened to the other Lombaxes and everything. Through the course of the series, he actually starts to learn what happened. He actually has a chance to reconcile conjunctions with them. But through a series of motivation and everything that I will not tell you because it's spoilers, he eventually decides to set off because he ultimately decides that his home is a home without the Lombaxes, despite them being technically his own flesh and blood and everything. It's an interesting story of coming to terms with you and understanding where your real home is.
The difference being that I'm pretty sure Ratchet and Clank at least properly built up to that. Again,
Well, Joe, but obviously they have like a fuck ton of games to do that.
yeah, again, look, I'm just gonna say this right now. If you have something that should be a big revelation to the characters, don't have the characters treated so lamely without... Okay, unless you're being tongue-in-cheek, which this game is obviously not being.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and look, whether or not Ubisoft were at the helm here, and okay, look, whether or not this is their first time trying to do an RPG like this, okay, you should know at least plot-wise where to place your stuff. Like, you know, you don't have to be a game designer in RPGs to know how to plan out your plot for the most part. Oh, speaking to her now.
Can I play with your glowing ball?
What the heck? Where did this come from? Hi!
Just one bounce against the wall?
Personal space? That's his body?
Not nice at all.
That's a joke, I guess.
Was that part of the side quest, or was that after you
No,
did
it
a
was
battle?
it was after a battle.
Yeah. Igniculus, I have been waiting for you.
With all our powers
Let me
combined.
guess. They offer for Igniculus to come with them, but Igniculus says no, he can't come. He has to help his JRPG friends. We get XP. Moving on. Am I right?
Very good, Jova.
And you know what's the funny part? Pedro didn't show it, but that's exactly the same that happens in a side quest in 13.2 with Mog.
Of course.
It's tied to those clock puzzles that Pedro charmingly loves, so... But essentially, it's pretty much the exact same identical. Mog ponders about the species of Muggles because usually they were not in the 13 universe.
I'll go ahead, Shiver.
I'm gonna share my as well, continue later.
You will always be dear to me, Igniculus. Sif Firefly?
Like, again, look, with how little Igniculus actually talked to the elementals, does anyone really think he's gonna abandon us? Like, again, I mean, okay, obviously gameplay-wise he wouldn't abandon us, but they don't even do a good job story-wise to give the idea that he might.
Shake the tear from your eye, Aurora. Goodbye.
Aww.
Yep.
Well,
At last, we are
bye
going home.
then.
We're totally losing our gameplay element that's been with us from the start.
Igniculus, it is time. Light has long faded from this land.
We're totally gonna lose a party member from a side quest.
Whoa, wait! The sun has set, but it will soon up the sky climb.
In a few hours, the sun will rise.
We can
Yeah.
still save Lemuria, the land in which I've grown.
Aww.
I'm not going.
Oh,
Aurora, I am home.
Note for note. And that's it.
Let us really fly. Igniculus, Aurora, goodbye.
That's it. So
That's
the elementals were Debbie Downers who
I'm so
just
glad that you stayed. But
It all who are bright and all who will fly, whatever.
so essentially
And we got the Spinel, which is one of the best oculis that you can get.
So essentially, Igniculus' race are a bunch of cowards who are just gonna abandon the world because
Yeah,
light
it's
is
tied, I guess, to the whole, it's part of our nature, we need to be strangers of this world.
like,
shit.
okay. Let's compare this to the masked guy and his tribe or whatnot. I mean, like, okay, we actually got backstory and build up to it, so we actually understood the tragedy when they pretty much kicked him out of his tribe despite him saving their lives, to the point where I could actually feel sorry for him. And again, that was also a side quest, and that was done in a span of a few minutes as well. So, yeah, this being Ubisoft's first RPG, that's not an excuse because they literally just did how you do that sort of thing right, with the bad guy as a sidekick, who becomes your party member if you do the side quest. But again, what the heck happened here? Like, seriously, I don't care whether or not they were getting rushed or whatnot. This is just poor planning on the inner team's planning thing. Like, they could have easily have told a story, even within this side quest, rushed or not, but they didn't.
By the way, watch out for that pillar because it gets sometimes shook by electric charges and it damages you.
Yep. All right.
You know,
But yeah, I get what you mean, Jova, but again, it's tied to the whole, we should have kept it relatively simple, with simple elements.
honestly, Gio, I'm gonna be quite honest. Even when the game was being quote-unquote simple, it just felt
No, well, that's the thing, Jova. It is not, almost throughout the entirety of it.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, well, oh, wait, hold on. So you're suggesting that they should have changed how the story went overall from the get-go?
Yeah.
Okay. That I can agree
by
with.
just, for example, again, by just removing the whole parallel world to our world, they would have gained at least a bit of ground.
And now there's apparently 3 different worlds that we're supposed to care about in this venture.
Oh yeah, this is another quest. This one is actually interesting because that's one that's actually relatively simple. Essentially, you're getting these emeralds sprouting from the ground, and essentially you need to use them to kind of telling you the correct way to a treasure left by the founders of Lemuria, essentially, which will consist in powerful oculi and I think some bull items.
Yeah.
Interesting.
As for what you were saying too, well, maybe if Toriyama had made those puzzles comprehensible, maybe I could actually try to show that fucking thing.
Yeah, but I don't blame you. But yeah, Jova, the gist of it is practically the same. Mog wanders around the Moogle because an important thing that I remember doing in the element of the first game was that the first one of the things that I think it was Toriyama itself or someone else in Steam in their interview stated is that they blatantly stated they had no plan to include Mughals, and they said, "Oh, we just think we're not that important in terms of the story." And the best you can get of them is by having them as an icon of one of the shops that you can use in the first 13 games.
On one hand, I do understand sometimes because, as Spoonie put it back in his videos back when he made videos, like the problem with trying to include Mughals in something like Final Fantasy, in something akin to the setting of Final Fantasy 13 or even 15, is that those Mughals look way too cartoony and they look so completely out of place in the actual universe that the thing is set in. Tabata managed to get around that problem cleverly by including the Mughals as an actual toy that gets passed around for the people in the world. So the Mughal in 15 is a popular plushie, basically. So that's a clever way of incorporating the Mughals and even using them in battle. You can actually use the Mughals in battle still.
Yeah, isn't it one of Iris weapons?
Yeah, well, no, actually, no. It's Iris who gives it to you.
Oh,
basically.
okay.
But yeah, so that's a clever way of incorporating a Mughal in a way that doesn't feel out of place in the world of Final Fantasy 15. Toriyama, on the other hand, oh, okay, people want Mughals. Let's just shove this annoying Mughal as our AI tutorial partner and just have him try to forcibly act cute all the time and just comes across as annoying. And there you go.
Let's have an actual game mechanic where you need to take this fucking thing and toss it around like a football.
Because it's so cynical. The way talk about cynical. At least when Tabata was told to incorporate Mughals, he actually gave a shit and tried.
The point being, Jova, essentially again in 13.2 you get only Mog on its own, which seems to have the magical properties because it turns into a weapon and shit. But then it's tied to the side quest near the end of the game, I think. You started in one of the alternate versions of Urba, or Urba, whatever it's called.
Urba.
But and Mog wanders around about his parents and his race. You can get, of course, in the data log, some tidbits on how he eventually ended up with Lightning. Surprisingly enough, Pedro, it involves also the boss of the Arbiter of Time for some reason. It's a weird story. But the point being, you need to do this set of puzzles, the clock time puzzle, which even for my standard, because like Pedro, I tried at least to get them as soon as possible. But the problem is the ones tied to Mog are some of the most difficult in game, even for me. Like I still managed to get all of them, but boy, I was so close to rage quitting. And
Those
what you
puzzle-
get?
Sorry.
And what you
Right.
get at the end? A cutscene, a very brief cutscene, built entirely by watching Mog. You don't even know what you see. Actually, you only hear Moogle noises, so it's implied that he's talking to his race. He just waves them and says, "Oh no, I actually prefer to travel again with Noah and Sarah. Goodbye."
My guess is it was
Bye,
meant to
bye.
set the stage for the Moogle Forest of Lightning Returns.
I don't really know. Again, Pedro, I'm pretty confident. Again, I followed the development of both games, and I can tell you that while I think that was the idea for Lightning Returns right as soon as 13.2 ended, I'm pretty sure they had no idea how actually to structure it. Oh, hold on, I think it's it's time for another cutscene with the
Play.
disc. Yeah. Because it's still alive somehow.
Your Grace, the waters rise higher. His breath is shallow. The situation is dire.
But get me a fucking dog.
Potter, please rise.
Was
your
about
people's cries.
dash.
The music is beautiful.
Yeah. Well,
No,
again,
I don't
the
have
first
really
thing
any
that's been
complaints about the
consistent,
music.
through the entire game, at least, is the soundtrack. Again,
And the
Jersey said
visuals.
I think it's time for another boss. Yeah, it's one of the giant mook kind. Again, that's also one of the this boss is also one of the reasons why you should technically you should be more advantaged by using Jen in your party, because being naturally resistant to water, she's perfect for countering this boss.
Lovely.
I'm actually very fine and able to get all of this because I changed Rebellious to element to lightning. So
Sure.
Okay.
no, it's not even just that. Too. Honestly, the thing about the thing that I hate most about 13.2 is how cynical it feels. Like, oh, you guys want exploration in towns? Here's town, and they're added in such a shallow, messed up, and
Yeah.
completely thrown away way. Like it feels so. It's literally like Toriyama was so completely angry at people for not understanding the genius of the first game.
He still is apparently, Joe, but at the
Really?
time of his recording, there was a recent PlayStation
Yeah,
blog
oh, God.
interview where,
So listen
in,
to this,
order
Shiro,
to
listen to
celebrate,
this.
in order to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the franchise, PlayStation asked to several key people at Square Enix, not all of them, for example, Pedro
Nomura
noticed
didn't.
he didn't ask to Nomura for some reason.
I guess it's 7 most likely.
Yeah, but essentially we asked some key peoples which Final Fantasy is their favorite. Each of them gave a different response, which felt in some kind of way. There's actually someone who actually said Final Fantasy 2 for some of the same reason, but whatever.
Okay.
The point is, for example, Tabata likes, for example, the first one, and it reflects in order how you
Yeah, 15 references the first game a lot. Like, so
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Which makes sense in his way. Comes Toriyama, and his answer is, and I quote, Final Fantasy 13 because I can get the sensation of empowerment by killing monster with lightning, the best protagonist.
That was his words. Those were his words.
Those were his actual words, yes.
I was really hopeful that it was a fake article for something like The Onion, but
No,
no,
it's not a PlayStation blog.
genuine.
It's genuine. The guy
This
is
man,
still as deluded as ever.
After all these years and all he has done, he still thinks like this.
So I guess he's biased.
I guess, like, I wonder how everyone else in the room felt.
You know, I'm gonna be quite honest. Why doesn't Toriyama ever pride his work on Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings? I mean, people actually do praise him there. I mean, you'd think that...
Because lightning's not there, Jova.
Yeah.
Also, not just
Lightning's
that, it's a bit complicated, Jove. If you don't remember, the Ivalice project has kind of been on hiatus for a lot of reasons. One of them including Matsuno essentially leaving Square Enix, at least as a permanent member. He occasionally could have worked. He occasionally worked as freelancing consultant. For example, he did his team got rebranded together while remaking Tactics Over at Skin Together, and recently he has essentially been contracted by Yoshida in order to write essentially a side scenario dedicated entirely about Ivalice for Final Fantasy XIV. So essentially now he's busy on that, but normally he will work on his own. But essentially Jova, outside of the 12 remaster, which was commissioned to another team, the entire Ivalice Alliance project, which almost all the games were part of, was put on hiatus after Tactics Advance 2 and the remake of War of Alliance. There was supposed to be this game called Fortress, made by the Team Green. But if you don't remember, these are the guys who made that questionable 2009 Bionicle Commando game. And since that was essentially a gigantic flop, the team was essentially disbanded by Square, and then after a while filed for bankruptcy. Great job.
You have to understand, sorry, go ahead.
And after that, essentially, Square put the project in hiatus, then started with the Fabulon of Crystallis. Essentially, we tried to do it again with a completely new team. It seems to be a modus operandi of Square of recently. First, it was the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, then Ivalice Alliance, then the Fabulon of Crystallis, and now the Final Fantasy XV universe. But the problem is, with the remaster, the team that did the remaster just said, well, yeah, if the demand is high enough, we'll probably continue doing other games set in Ivalice and actually proper new ones. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Go ahead, Pedro.
Basically, I've gotten trapped in a cycle. Well, I'm always going to interrupt them until the end of this battle.
Huh.
You'll see.
Well, I can see that because... Yeah, this boss, the strange enough, is not that agile. You think it should be, but no.
Anyway, you have to understand, Jova. Toriyama lives in his own little world where he's a genius and lightning is the greatest thing to have been created by mankind. Like, and that's how he is. Like, he doesn't.
Honestly, I'm not really surprised. I mean, it's an obvious bout of bias on his part. Honestly, I'd say that's one of the least insane things ever from him. Like, well, yeah, of course.
Well, Jova, there's the thing. Despite the fact that he still acts like this, is why, first of all, I don't want to even imagine how it is actually at work, because at the end of the day, despite being developing games and everything, being in a game developing company still counts kind of like as office work. So relationship between colleagues needs to be, at least decent. With a man like Toriyama, I don't even want to imagine how his relationship with his colleagues is. So my question is, why wasn't he fired already?
Because he did some good for the company, I guess?
Again, it's probably Kitase, which it's putting him on a leash or something.
Yeah, remember, much like Yokotaro has Saito, Toriyama has Kitase. Toriyama is Kitase's apprentice of sorts. So since Kitase has a high position at Square, he's the main reason why he's still there, most likely. Although Kitase himself should also go, because Kitase long since gone lost passion for the series at this point.
Well, not just that, Pedro. Kitase is the quintessence of not doing anything. Again, on his own, it wouldn't really be a negative thing on his own. But the problem is that this attitude of him being, letting these things to go, actually damages on the long run.
Wasn't Kitase also the one who tried to excuse 13's failure on Americans not getting into that stuff?
That too, yeah.
Again, dude, you do know that Americans are the same guys who helped Final Fantasy VII being a big success.
Not just that, Joe, but despite the game, it wasn't one of the taglines, but it was pretty advertised that the team was developed with a Western mindset.
Yeah, that was apparently the reason for changing the job names, which ended up confusing us. It was clearly
a response in order to cover their own asses, which failed spectacularly. It's the same Jova as the developers of Marvel Infinite saying about the whole functions thing.
It's like, hey, I know that we made this game with obviously American audiences in mind, and by that it means we assumed what American audiences want, and that ended up blowing up in our face. But we're gonna still assume that American audiences aren't the ones that get it for a game that was made for them.
And again, I want to stress things out in a sense that despite not being my favorite character ever, and despite Air having a lot of flaws, I don't really hate lightning per se. Like, I just think
I
it's
do.
I just think it's an idea that has been mistreated horribly because it was in the hand of a wrong person.
Yes,
Honestly.
as it has been proven by the City games and World of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, again, it's essentially as this. Lightning as a concept is fine. Lightning as it was used in the original trilogy is not. But if I had to
Of
be-
course, lightning as a concept is...
Sorry, go ahead.
But if I have to be
Of course.
honest,
Okay.
Squall and Tidus are still worse protagonists in my eyes.
And no. Lightning is way worse than those two for me.
Lightning,
Remember, Joe, we already established this in our 13-1 playthrough. Teo is more tolerant to boredom and asshole-ness, where he's not nearly as tolerant to annoyingness. Whereas
Not
you are
just
kind of the
that,
opposite.
not
You
just that,
are more
Joe,
tolerant to annoyingness.
not just that, Joe, you have also to understand one thing, one very important thing.
Well, lightning is annoying too. But go on.
Lightning at worst can be boring and in being bored on their own. And yeah, the only time where she actually tries to be unlikable is in the first game, where she does all the thing about, oh, I want to go alone, or oh, I hate my sister and everything.
Or the whole, I'm
Squall?
gonna convince a kid to go on vengeance, or the whole, I'm gonna
Yeah.
convince a kid to help me try and bring down a society, or the whole, I'm gonna draft a kid into
Actually,
this...
we'd hope she gets instantly, but that's beside the point.
It's
My
still
point
stupid,
being-
and she's still annoying, but go on.
Here's the thing, Jova. Those are episodes. Squall is like that 24/7. Squall is a
Yeah.
complete sociopath because of his own stupidity emo attitude.
Yeah.
It is, and for being a protagonist, this is poisonous to your whole game.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I will acknowledge that Squall definitely has a lot of problems, but with Squall, at the very least, I felt that he actually changed. With Lightning, yes. Lightning gets better. The problem is that those scenes feel like they come out of nowhere. Like,
Oh,
nowhere.
Jen, where did you learn magic with such speed?
I only know what I need?
From the book of Piscian Spells. I love to read.
Oh, okay. You just
At least that
read
rhymes.
about his spells
She-
and magic.
She's a self-taught. Basically.
Jova, it's like in Fire Emblem, you just need a tome in order to cast a spell.
Yeah.
I guess it just feels like a waste of world building to sum up. Oh, I just read it from a book.
But yeah, well, here's the thing, Jova. If I had to be honest, Squall doesn't change. He just gets laid. That's
No, it's
Yes,
not even just that, Teo. My problem with the whole quote-unquote character development squad was he doesn't actually gradually develop. He just resets. The moment Rinoa gets in danger, Nojima just completely changed the way he wrote the character.
I mean-
He's been writing the character completely one note, being a sociopath, like you said, and then when it's time for him to actually start caring, then Nojima just completely flips and starts writing him as if he suddenly cares now. There's no gradual change. He just randomly switches personalities. That's
and
my
then
problem.
there's the whole implication that he's trying to get laid with Rinoa only in order to spite Cypher, but that's a topic
Ugh.
for when we'll actually get to the game.
I guess the main reason
I'm
I
still
just...
I'm still waiting for that game to come to the PS4, specifically the
Oh,
Steam
no.
port, so I can properly record it.
There's a
But-
Steam... Oh yeah, that's right. There's a Steam port of Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ports of 7 and 9 are already on the PS4, but 8 is still not.
Oh,
Skate
9's on
is
the
to sun-
PS4?
oh, it's kinda- Yeah, 9 is on the PS4.
I
Yeah.
must
Just
have
look at the
missed
Steam
that.
port.
That's okay though. I've got the Steam port.
Never been shipped before.
In the blue, do we see any clues?
I
Blue's
smell a
Clues?
puzzle.
I guess we
This
need to get our
reminds me of a
hand.
puzzle.
No, guys. It's Blue's Clues. We need to get out our handy dandy notebooks.
Well,
Gotcha.
who's done the Explores for?
The founders of Lemuria, yeah. Reflections.
I love how one detail that I really like about Aurora's teenager design is the fact that her outfit actually looks like a T-shirt, like the sleeves are short. Like it really gives her a teenager look. That's a nice little touch that I really like.
Alright. So essentially, in order to open the gate, you need to use the symbols on the 4 explorers' items. By the way, one of them is wearing a conch, another a spear, another a harp, and the one that Pedro is using the Caduceus.
There is one particular twist with this one. You're supposed to do it in a specific order.
Yes. However, the game is relatively generous in a sense that as soon as you've done one, it sticks. So you don't have to start it over and over again.
Okay.
Let's see if this one is it. First, let's
Actually, the hint you need to get is to use the phases of the moon that are on the pedestal.
Yeah. That's okay. We can just easily trial and error our way out of it.
There we go. The conch.
There we go.
There you go. Which is like the Ubisoft logo. Again, nice touch.
The path of the eclipse.
Isn't the Ubisoft logo different now?
It is, but it has still a similar form.
And by now, folks, I mean as of 2018.
Yeah, well, yeah, it still even the more recent ones resemble a conch shell. So it just changed how it's presented. The old Ubisoft logo was terrible. I mean, the one of the PS1 days.
Oh, what were
God,
those? I forget.
It was terrible.
It was bland. It was like
a misshaped colored thing that didn't really look like anything. It was just.
I'm glad
it's kind of like
it.
It's kind of like the original logo of Level 5. It was just this weird multicolored shade that didn't really look like.
There you go. It was a simple black writing with a very tiny rainbow on top of it.
Oh.
Well, Pedro gets the puzzle.
Here, might as well. Oh god, Google Images changed. What is this?
What do you mean?
Now it has this thing where it has these categories like iPhone, Classic, Sport. What the hell is this?
Interesting.
Kids these days.
Whatever.
Anyway, in the next part, we actually go to the actual Temple of the Sun, which is right dive under.
All right.
See you then.
See you then.
See ya.